Hey, it's me, Bobbert, and welcome back to my RareWare Retrospective series. I'm at the last 3 games of the N64 era, none of which I've ever played before. So let's get started with our first game of the trilogy, Perfect Dark.
Perfect Dark. Rated M for mature.
After the critical and financial success of GoldenEye 007, do you think that Rare will make a sequel based on the next James Bond movie, Tomorrow Never Dies? Now, I heard 2 different stories from my sources, one from Unseen64 and the other from Perfect Dark Wikia. The first one is that Electronic Arts bought the license and actually made the game Tomorrow Never Dies on the Nintendo 64. Now, whether or not Rare tried to get the license back, I feel like that either way, Electronic Arts would have got the license anyway because they're a much bigger company and offer a lot more money. Now, the other story is that RareWare wasn't interested in making another James Bond game and always wanted to make a sci-fi game. But either way, Perfect Dark is born. In my opinion, I believe the second one because that's the story that former RareWare employees go with. Now, the game was inspired by many films and shows like Elektra, Ghost in the Shell, and The X-Files. The main character, Joanne d'Arc, was inspired by Joan of Arc, which the French pronounce it as Jeanne d'Arc. Martin Horace, the director of the game, made the protagonist female because he always wanted more women in gaming, which before Perfect Dark, there were already 3 female protagonists that starred in their own game. The first one being Dixie Kong from Donkey Kong Country 3. The second one is Kasuri from Banjo-Kazooie, and third is Vera from Jet Force Gemini. That's not counting the playable women character in Killer Instinct, and I'm not fully counting Tiny Kong in Donkey Kong 64, even though it's one of the 5 playable characters in that game. The game took about 2 to 3 years to develop, which was pretty fast compared to the other RareWare games they made during that time. It uses the same engines as GoldenEye 007, but with a few upgrades. Those I will talk about in the gameplay section, but before we get to that, I want to talk about a couple of features that was cut from the game. First being that Martin Horace wanted to focus more on night and dark. They wanted you to pretty much turn off all the lights so you can fight in the dark, but that was cut mostly due to hardware limitations. Now, you can still shoot the lights off in the games, but they're not mandatory and they don't make the stage completely dark. Second is that they're going to use the Game Boy camera and transfer pack so you can take pictures of yourself and put yourself in the multiplayer game, but that was cut to avoid controversy due to the Combine High School massacre that happened in 1999. They fear that people would take pictures of other students and they may think that the game would get pulled from the shelf because of that. Without spoiling too much, the story begins with secret agent Joanne d'Arc sneaking into Datadyne skyscraper. She's there to rescue Dr. Carroll, who turns out to be a computer AI. She also figured out that Carrington Institute are selling Aaron's car, and I'm definitely going to mispronounce this, but Marians, which I believe is their word to saying Martians. I'm just going to say aliens throughout the whole video, hope you don't mind. Joanne d'Arc has to travel all over the world like Chicago, Washington DC, even Area 51 and other planets to stop Carrington Institute and the aliens. As you can see here, I'm playing the Xbox 360 remake. The graphic looks like that it took a N64 game and put it to the Dreamcast, which is a compliment. Trust me, I love the Dreamcast graphics, and I regret what I said in that Jet Force Gemini video. But the original Nintendo 64 version, it was one of 3 games that required the inspection pack, and even though the game may have looked great when it first came out, I say it didn't age too well. As I mentioned before, Perfect Dark is a spiritual successor of GoldenEye 007. It plays pretty much the same. It's a first-person shooter where you complete submissions with a number of objectives, depending on which difficulty you choose. The one negative thing I have to say about this game is that the aiming is too sensitive. Aiming was always the weakest part in RareWare games, and even in the Xbox Live Arcade remake, the aiming is still too sensitive. It was in 007 and it's here in Perfect Dark in its original and the remake. Now everything else plays the same and works just as well, so if you like GoldenEye on the N64, then you're definitely going to love this game. The one thing that Perfect Dark sells over GoldenEye is that it really plays off the secret agent sci-fi themes. In some missions, you get special tools like night vision, disguises, and computer hacking devices to complete certain missions. Now the mission itself are mostly easy to figure out by yourself without a walkthrough or guide. Sometimes I did get stuck, but when I did get stuck, it was pretty fun actually. Trying to figure out, you got all the puzzle pieces acquired to you, but you need to figure out how to put them all together. I know on paper it may not sound like good game design, but that's really the biggest fun about Perfect Dark in general. Like, compared to modern FPS shooter nowadays, like when you get to one part, you usually have like a cutscene or some text telling you, hey, you need to use this on that to get to the next part, which I understand it may work on that game like a Call of Duty or Battlefield, but in a secret agent game like Perfect Dark, like I wish that more games, fall in that direction, being able to actually explore the place without, a dot telling you where to go and where you need to go. It's something I really miss in FPS nowadays. Now, not that I'm saying that I hate Call of Duty or Battlefield. I'm actually a Call of Duty fan, but I just wish there was less of that and more of Perfect Dark in GoldenEye 64. Maybe Playtonic Games can one day make a spiritual successor of Perfect Dark, but that's wishful thinking on my part. Sorry if I'm not saying too much about the game. I really do like it, but everything I have to say about Perfect Dark, I can't help but to mention GoldenEye as well. They're pretty much the same game, which is not a bad thing in my book. The only thing I have to talk about Perfect Dark that separates from GoldenEye just a bit is that it does better in cutscenes. In GoldenEye you have text cutscenes with no voice acting, which I understand during that time there was hardware limitation, there was no expansion pack. Well, in Perfect Dark, not only you get like those text cutscenes, but you get voice acting, in-game cutscenes, and it really tells the story better. It like when I played GoldenEye 64 for the first time, it felt like that I needed to watch the movie to fully understand the game. But in Perfect Dark, you can just follow it very easily. You can understand it, and it's like playing an actual movie. In fact, I'm really surprised that nobody actually made a movie based on this game. But either way, that's really all I had to say. Like, the graphics pretty nice. Well, the Xbox Live Arcade specifically, the original N64 was, well, like I said, it didn't age too well. I really like the settings, the different places they go to, especially when they go to the alien world or to a snowy mountain. I really like snow ice based levels. As you know, if you follow my Retrospective series, you already know that. But I'm going to try to keep this video short and give you my final thoughts. Once again, I apologize for not talking too much about the game and feel like I rushed through this video, but I really do like Perfect Dark. It's one of my favorite RareWare games. I put it up there with GoldenEye 007. I really wish I played this game back when it came out in 2000, to get that nostalgia feeling. The game is out on Xbox Live Arcade and Xbox One via Rare Replay, so I recommend getting one of those versions if you can't get a hands on the original N64 version or GoldenEye 007. Just think of it as, GoldenEye 007, but, big improvements here and there. Now, how did the game do well? in sales wise, where it sold about 2.5 million, which is not too bad considering A, it was at the end of the N64 life cycles, and B, it was one of 3 games that required the expansion pack, so it's actually some pretty impressive numbers. Now, of course, it didn't sell as well as GoldenEye 007, which sold about 8 or 9 million, but it's still pretty impressive, and it's no surprise that this game got a sequel eventually. As the Perfect Dark series as a whole, where there was a game on the Game Boy Color, which was a top-down shooter, it got mediocre score and barely anybody remembers it, as well as any portable games that RareWare made during that time. There was also a prequel on the Xbox 360 called Perfect Dark Zero. The game is kind of interesting based on its reception alone. When it originally came out and years after it came out. I don't want to spoil too much because that is a future review on my show, so stay tuned when that comes out. They also made 2 novels and some comic books, so if you want more Perfect Dark, I recommend reading up on those. The story takes place after Perfect Dark Zero, so I recommend playing the game before reading up on the novels. Now, they also had plans for future Perfect Dark games called Perfect Dark Core and Perfect Dark Vengeance. I was going to say not much to say about the game, then I discovered a video on N64 that goes into detail about the game story-wise and gameplay-wise. I don't want to talk too much about it because it's technically spoiler territory. They gave a lot of information on the story, but those 2 games was cancelled due to 2 reasons. One is that RareWare financially couldn't support the game. Like, in development, they had to cut members of the team down to save up on money, and B, Microsoft didn't want to support it financially, mainly because they felt like there's already too many sci-fi shooters on the console like Halo and Gears of War. Thus, the Perfect Dark series hasn't been heard of for quite a while, unfortunately. Sorry to leave it on a sad note, but I do want to say this before I end the video. I feel like Perfect Dark should be a much bigger series, and Joanna Dark herself should be a much bigger video game icon than she is right now. I feel like there is a lot of potential in Perfect Dark, and I wish that Microsoft would let RareWare and any other video game developers, this was recorded after they canceled Scalebound with Protein Games. But I wish Microsoft would let the developers have more freedom and take more chances, especially if they're going to release a new console like in the near future. Not counting the Scorpio, but I do think there is a lot of potential of Perfect Dark, and hopefully we see another game in the series in the near future. Well, 1 down, 2 to go. Tune in next time when I review Banjo-Tooie, a sequel to my favorite game, a game that I haven't played yet as of this recording, so will it become my new favorite game? Tune in next time. This is me, Bobbert, and I catch you guys later.